fact, I came here from the Harlem Book Fair this afternoon. It was my privilege to have a one-on-one conversation with Amiri Baraka. You ever hear of Amiri Baraka? You talk about the man out there. We had a discussion called From Baraka to Barack, the evolution of black political thought. And in all that context, you know, you have James Baldwin. If you're talking about going from Baraka to Barack, probably one of the stops in between is James Baldwin. Now, James Baldwin is a son of Harlem. And one of the reasons I pulled this book together was to make sure that he got his propers. Because if you look around Harlem, you won't find any significant landmarks, you know, and anything to indicate that this great writer, a real visionary, walked among us. He went to PS 24, which is over on 128th Street between Madison and Park Avenue. And one of the concerns we have, I don't know if we brought any of our petitions with us this afternoon. We do have a few. We're talking about getting a street named, a place for James Baldwin in his hometown, and a place where he was born. How many of you are willing to kind of join us in this effort, huh? I mean, you go over on 135th Street, you have the Walk of Fame over there, you have something inscribed in the sidewalk. I mean, people are more prone to spill their Starbucks coffee on it, you know, to really observe, you know, the fact that this is your great legendary prophet, you know, walked among us. James Baldwin said that, you know what I want to do? I want to be an honest man, and I want to be a good writer. And I think he accomplished both those missions. He also said, I want to be a witness. You know, he meant that in so many different ways, because from a spiritual standpoint, you're talking about a man who was raised in the lap of saints. You're coming up through the Holy Roll of churches in the Pentecostal experience. All of that you can find to some extent, you know, transmuted into Go Tell It on the Mountain, you know, which is his first novel. And he had to leave the country. He had to leave this country to go to get his ideas together, to get kind of frame of mind and consciousness, you know, to bring that book to fruition. He took with him Louis Armstrong and Bessie Smith and a typewriter. That's all he needed, you know, to bring all of this together. Go Tell It on the Mountain is kind of a semi-autobiographical thing, but you can find, you know, many aspects of his experiences. Baldwin always said, most of what you write is autobiographical. You write what you know. When a young man before me was talking about hip-hop homicide, you know, we need to know something about, you know, the whole hip-hop culture out there. Because one of the concerns I have is to have an intergenerational dialogue, something I've been working on with a number of my younger people out there. So it's such a pleasure to have Linda to invite me here. I think it's the second time I've come down this way and talk about it, you know, to say, bring you some news and information from uptown and some of the things that's happening up there. You know, we talk about the whole gentrification, you know, what's going on with 125th Street, the whole rezoning process up there, the expansion. Some people say the improvement of Columbia University continues to be a gnawing concern, a controversial issue. One of the concerns I have, you know, at the Amsterdam News is to kind of keep a pulse on the community. And so I've had that opportunity through the Tatum family there to be a representative of this community. You know, and having opportunities to be on Gil Noble's show on Like It Is. You know, to be with Esther Armour on WBAI. Hey, WBAI, you know, come on, let's talk about that. With Eddie Ellis, who's also in the audience here. You know, I can recognize a number of the fantastic members of our community who saw fit to come down here and enjoy this afternoon with you. It's certainly a pleasure to be with you. All I can say is that I would take some time to read from this, but hey, that's your responsibility, that's your obligation. You go ahead and read from this book. You can discover who James Baldwin is. I mean, I asked some of the younger people out there today, they've never heard of him. You know, he's kind of like a forgotten individual. He should not be forgotten. We have to talk about an African-American continuum, a continuum that starts with the first scream, you know, from that slave ship that arrived in this country, all the way down to the scream that James Baldwin gave in 1924 in August the 2nd, when he came into this world, and he never stopped screaming. He was screaming right to the end of his life in December of 1987. So he was always concerned. I mean, people say that he stole away from, he lost, you know, his artistic distance and his artistic vision. He got so involved in the civil rights movement. But you have to understand the civil rights movement was what you call fodder for him.
All you have to do is look at some of his novels. The last novel in particular was called Tell Me How Long the Train's Been Gone. He was always trying to find some different kind of ways and angles on the African American experience. He was concerned about, racism in this country. He was concerned about homophobia. He was concerned about the whole gay liberation movement. He was concerned about the struggle that lesbians have in the society. He was concerned about the African American situation. He was concerned about the civil rights movement. That's why he went down south when he came back. When he came back to this country from Paris in 1963 to participate in the March on Washington, they would not even allow him to speak. And Malcolm X said, hey, they were afraid that James might say anything. So they had to cut, what speech do you have? And they took the speech away from James Baldwin, and you know who read it? Burt Lancaster. They took the speech away from him, but still some of his words were still there, modified, edited to death, particularly by some of the doyens of the civil rights movement at that time. But James, you cannot muffle him. There was no way he was going to be muffled. There was no way that it was going to be kept from his particular mission to tell it like it is, to speak truth to power. To the end of his life, and I think Amiri Baraka said it very well, during his funeral services for James, when he said that Jimmy Baldwin was God's black revolutionary mouth. Jimmy was God's black revolutionary voice. And a voice that was impossible to stifle, impossible to muffle. One of the things I try to do here is to bring that voice alive as he talks about Baraka, as he talks about Harold Cruz, as he talks about Langston Hughes, as he talks about Countee Cullen. Some of these here real icons coming out of the civil rights movement, coming out of the whole Harlem Renaissance period, coming out of the black liberation struggle in this country. Baldwin represented all of that. God's black revolutionary mouth. James Baldwin was. We need to listen to him, y'all. We need to listen to that revolutionary voice. Thank you very much this afternoon. It's good to be with you. And I think all you book lovers, I think all of the authors got their books there. Renee, they can come in and sign their books. Support our writers out there. We certainly need your support. Looking at the whole publishing industry and the kind of tailspin and the general economic crisis, subprime crimes, and all those kind of things that are going on, we have some work to do. I think, people talking about the whole Obama situation and the kind of prospects we have, I don't think we have any real options in there. There's no alternatives. People can talk about Cynthia McKinney, and certainly we love Cynthia, but we have to make sure that we don't have a continuation of Bush 2. We don't need more, bullshit. No more that bullshit, no more bushwhacking. No more denying, the real urgency of America that's represented by the whole campaign of Barack Obama. So, hey, while we understand he is by no means a perfect candidate, where can you find one? But when you consider the options, when you consider the alternatives, has to be Barack Obama. Let's put him in there. Perhaps more than anything, we can talk about the class contradictions. Once we get him in office, we will keep his feet to the fire too. Because there's a number of issues out there that are pertinent to, particularly the progressive community here, that he needs to answer to. We have concerns about affirmative action. I know you have concerns about that. We're concerned about police brutality. We're concerned about gentrification that is sweeping all across this country. The president sets a tone for all of these things. So when we get him into office, let's put him in office first. We gotta win. We can't criticize him concretely and with any kind of real significance until we get him into office. And then we can tell him about the concerns. We need a progressive forum to make sure we keep that man's feet to the fire. Until then, we can talk about Barack Obama. We realize you're not the Messiah, you're not our savior. They talk about putting a different kind of black face on imperialism and neocolonialism and monopoly capitalism in this world. Okay, that may be the case. But when you get into that Oval Office, beyond what New Yorker magazine has to say in a so-called satirical take, they have a whole different definition of satire than I have. Because they were pointing at the wrong individuals. Satire talks about getting to human vice and folly. And human vice and folly rest with the Bush administration. That's who should be satirized. That's who should be characterized. That's the ones that we should be aiming our particular concern, not at Michelle you know, with an afro, with an assault rifle thrown over his shoulder, with a whole, you know, militant kind of 1960 posturing, not with an Obama dressed in Arab garb, you know, with the Islamic aspects there, with Osama bin Laden looming in the background, burning the U.S. flag. No, no, no. We can talk about the Bush administration and the burning of the U.S. Constitution. That's what we should be aimed at. We should be talking about this here unwinnable, you know, unconscionable, immoral war that's being conducted, taking more than 4,000 lives in Iraq. We have now Barack running around, you know, in Europe talking about, you know, what's happening with Afghanistan and Pakistan and then on to the Middle East, to Israel. You know, they talk about him, you know, backsliding, doing a moonwalk, you know, away from some very principal issues in his campaign. But if he's a pragmatist, you know, one of the good things about that New Yorker magazine, beyond that notorious and completely absurd cover, is the article in there. Check out that article. I mean, Ryan Leisler does a very good job of spelling out the kind of political evolution of Barack Obama. Of course, you can find the same thing if you read Dreams from Our Father and also The Audacity of Hope. Check it out. David Mendel also has a very fine biography on Barack Obama out there. We have to learn who he is. And I think one of the real good things about the extended campaign that they had during the Democratic primaries is that a large number of people in this country had a chance to find out who he was. And I think this whole 50-state strategy they have in mind to introduce him to America, it may turn out to be a real boon for his campaign, to make sure that they understand what he is, what he stands for, what he represents out there. But as I said before, when you consider the alternative, there are no alternatives. There's only Barack Obama at this point. Okay, thank you very much. Let me run the rap. Show them how we made. That's how Baldwin made. Wrap it out. So much Baldwin. Look at Baldwin. It's a great spot. So wrap it up. August 2nd, 1924. Bring it on. Star, it's on the set. You know, he's screaming hard. Let me say, they speak hard. Speak loud. Speak loud. Hard. That's what James Baldwin was all about. JB back there. JB, the one and only. Come on. That's James Brown, James Baldwin. But James Brown, too, we know. Even if I'm making the Christians and giving them the suits. Hey. I love the music. That's what the beat's all about. James Baldwin's all about the blues, too. Check it out. Jazz, hey. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, hey, the Birds, Charlie Parker, bring it on down, hey, yeah, check it out, hey, bebop, check it out, say do wop, check it out, hey, get out of here.